Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I hope you're fine. Today in this class, we'll talk about reading skills for writers. Dear students, as you know, out of four, language skills like reading, writing, speaking, and of course listening, reading gets the most, I would say, importance. Why? Because this is the most rewarding skill, I would say. Of course, there's a logic link, between these skills, like listening results in speaking and reading results, of course, in writing. Therefore, reading actually is writer's most important, tool, I would say. Reading is also called as a mother skill out of these four. Why? Because, it offers a lot. Like, see books, encyclopedia, and, magazines and newspapers and all, which, from very frankly speaking, are the record or the stock of man's knowledge, like, the history of man's knowledge, I would say. And this all, like, the knowledge human beings endeavors, their discoveries, their inventions, they all, like, have been recorded actually in books. And for books, of course, you need one skill to explore information from, and that, of course, is a reading skill. Why we call it a mother skill? Of course, it gives you knowledge. Then it gives you information about the word stock. It gives you the collocations also, like, word and its association with another word. It gives you, lexical choices. It gives you syntactical choices, like, different, writers, I would say, structural and grammatical choices. And, of course, it helps you to, learn, how writers actually, write about, different aspects of this life and, provide you sort of an opportunity, to also learn from. And, then if you, paraphrase, or if you rewrite, the same piece of information, which you get out of that reading thing, of course, this is how you learn language also. And you move towards being, of course, your writer in future. In this, lecture, in this class, I'll focus on three types of, readings. Number one, academic reading. Number two, educated reading. And number three, purpose reading. Of course, these three are, I believe, the most important, reading types. Then, there may be some more, like, pleasure reading also, but, that's fine, its importance is there. But three critical types, which I just named before you, and the first one as academic reading. Academic reading, of course, we call it, this is the one type, which usually we use at school, college, and university level, where students are given, paragraphs or passages. They are given, list of questions, and they are supposed to find out answers to those questions. This is what, we call academic reading. Plus, of course, students, when they, like, read different books, they browse, the information, present in the libraries. That's another, like, type of, reading thing. But I'll, strictly focus on to this academic type, in which you are given a passage, a list of questions, and then you are supposed to, answer, of course, those questions. Let's talk about, what academic reading is and how we should go about, like, doing it. Frankly speaking, academic reading is, of course, based on a paragraph or a passage. Now, paragraph, of course, is the one, which has one central idea, and passage is the one, in which there are many paragraphs, which we also call as multi-paragraph text. When we say multi-paragraph text, then it means they are going to have many sub-ideas leading towards that very main idea. Standard length of a passage is, roughly speaking, 800 to 1,000 words. And in academic practices, actually, you are given 1 to 3 passages. When I say 1 to 3 passages, it means that in one go, one after the other, you are going to, read 2,400, words to 3,000 words in some limited time, of course, like in examinations, for example, in class practices, for example. You, of course, have, a time limit in which, you are supposed to read 2,400 words to 3,000 words. And of course, each standard reading passage can have 10 to 15 questions, frankly speaking. So if there are 3 passages, or there are 2, if there are 2, then 30, questions you're going, 30 questions, you're going to answer. If there are 3 passages, then 45 questions, will be there. Now, this is global, length and breadth of academic, reading. To recapitulate, usually in academic reading, multi-text, you have to, multi-paragraph text, you have to, go through. Each text is of 8 to 1,000 words. If there are 3 texts, which is of course a general practice actually, 3 passages, then of course 2,400 words to 3,000 words, you are supposed to go through in limited time. As far as time stuff is concerned, well, it depends. You can be given, let's say, 1 hour, you can be given, 1.5 hours. It depends upon the nature of, that text. If it's strongly a technical text, for example, so you might be given a little more time. If it's more of descriptive or narrative text, then of course time can of course be reduced to, let's say, 50 minutes or 100 or 60 minutes, let's say, or even to 40 minutes. That depends actually the nature of those passages, And of course, these passages, technically speaking, they are not of the same difficulty level. They also vary. Usually the general academic practice is that your passages are set either in ascending or in descending order. When I say ascending order, it means the first passage is going to be, let's say, of less difficulty, the second passage then little more difficulty, and the third passage is going to be the most, I would say, difficulty. Most difficult, in other words. If they are in descending order, it means that the first one is going to be the most difficult passage. Technically, of course, strong. They're like, semantic and syntactical, like, appearances are, of course, more complicated, complex, technical, and that makes, the passage, difficult, of course. Then less difficult, and then, of course, least difficult. These are the 2 patterns of, those passages which are usually given, in academic setup. As far as questions concerned, of course, as I told you, that each passage can have 10 to 15 questions. 3 passages means then, 45 questions. Frankly speaking, there are only 6 questions, which we can ask you, like question, the same journalistic questions: who, what, when, where, why, and how. These are the questions, and their formats, of course, change. Sometimes, we go for true, false. Sometimes, there can be, let's say, multiple choice questions. There can be, some, what we call that, gap filling exercises. There can be, yes, no questions also. There can be matching stuff also. There can be some flow charts as well, and gonna fit in, information. There can be some tables, where you again complete the gaps there. So format stuff can be different, but questions, the nature is the same. 6 types. Let me first explain you the types of questions we usually ask in academic setup for reading, and then I'll discuss with you the process of reading, or the steps which a student should use to understand that passage, and then be able to find out answers to the questions. Well, as I said, questions are 6. The first question, which we say as who, of course, it's about the agent, the different characters, which have been used in the passage. That is who, names of people, names of, let's say, organizations. And then comes what. What means the main idea, actually, the theme of that whole passage. the whole passage, what that stuff is all about actually. The fundamental actually information, which has been given in that passage. Then where means, places, for example. They can be, again, different organizations. They can be cities, they can be countries, And when question shows time factor, they can be days, weeks, months, years, centuries, for example. And then comes why and how. Why shows the rational, the reasoning, and how shows the process. Now, these are 6 types of questions, which we, usually ask through different, formats. Formats I have already talked about, multiple choice and fill in the blanks and true, false and all that stuff. Now, let's talk about, how academic writing should be tackled. Well, for academic reading, you have to, first of all, read, the questions. Now, when I say questions, question is also a sentence, frankly speaking. But it's in interrogative form. A sentence has, as you know, 2 things in it. Picture words and function words. So, picture words are very important for academic reading. Picture words are also called as keywords of that sentence. And very frankly speaking, picture words are borrowed from or taken from the language of that academic passage. What I'm trying to say is, the same questions, which are given with the passage to find out their answers, like one passage of 800 words and 15 questions you are given, and then you are asked to find out, the answers to those questions. First step in academic reading is go through the questions very carefully. As I told you, questions are also sentences. In these sentences, there are 2 types of things. Number 1, function words, and number 2, picture words. For your, refreshing your memory, picture words are 4. Of course, they are verbs, they are adverbs, they are nouns and adjectives. And other parts of speech, they are function words. Now, these picture words are also called as keywords. These keywords are borrowed from or taken from the academic passage. It means whatever picture word you have underlined or you have identified is also present inside your passage. Let's say, question number 1, you underlined 1 or 2 keywords. And then if I ask you, since you have underlined, those 1 or 2 keywords, now straight away go to your text, that passage, and without reading, just eyeball through. Eyeball through means, without reading, try to find out, where that keyword is present in the passage. Let's say you find in the 2nd or the 3rd paragraph, the same word, which is in the question, the same word you find written inside the passage or inside the paragraph. Now, very frankly speaking, that word which you have discovered from that passage is the place of the answer of this question. Either exactly the same word is the answer, or information around that word is the answer. This is exactly I mean, when I say step number 1 is go through all the questions. When you go through all the questions, what you do? You underline the keywords. Keywords are, is, am, are is not a keyword. He, she, it is not a keyword. Keywords are nouns as subjects, for example, or as objects. Keywords are verbs. Keywords are modifiers like adjective and adverb. These are keywords. Underline. In one question, there can be one keyword, or there may be more than one keywords. Simply underline them. So if there are 15 questions, what you've done is underlined all the keywords. Now, what you should do, is it a ritual? You may ask me that, excuse me, is it a ritual that going through all the questions and underlining the keywords means what? No. This means actually that you are now going to forget about. And this is something I'm going to simplify your job. I'm going to make your job easy. That now, once you have identified the keywords, now forget about the questions. Only try to keep these keywords in your mind. I mean, if there are 15 questions, let's say there are 15 keywords you have identified. Or in some questions, there were more than one keyword, let's say 3-4 keywords also. So let's say total like, 15 to 20 keywords, you have found out. Now keep these keywords in your mind. It's difficult to keep in your mind 15 question statements. It's very difficult. Relatively speaking, easier is what? Keeping those 15 to 20 keywords in mind. Why keeping those keywords in mind? Because when you'll be going through the passage, when you'll be reading the passage, the same keywords, wherever you find the keyword, hold. That is the place, point of answer to that very question. That's why we say, when you go through questions, you underline the keywords. Keywords are, do not forget, I'm telling you again and again, keywords are picture words. They are not function words. They are picture words. They are noun. They are verb. They are adjective. They are adverb. Underline those keywords and try to keep those keywords in your mind. Now, this is step number 1 for academic reading. Now, what's step number 2? You have identified keywords which you're going to find out from the passage. Step number 2. Step number 2 now means now dealing with the passage. Those 800 words, which are in front of you now. First of all, in step number 2, you're going to read the topic of that passage. After reading the topic, then read first and the last sentence of every paragraph. Look, those 800 words in that passage, they will be, of course, in different paragraphs. Passage actually means multi-paragraph text. A passage containing or comprising, let's say, 5-6 paragraphs. When I say 5-6 paragraphs, it means first sentence and the last sentence of every paragraph. 5, if there are total 5 paragraphs in that passage, then first and the last of first paragraph, first and the last of second paragraph, first and last of third, onwards to 5. So total 10 sentences, you're going to read. What is this? Why I'm asking you read those 10 sentences? Look, as you have studied in paragraph writing, that a paragraph has 3 ingredients in it, like sentence number 1, main idea, okay, and sentence last, concluding idea, means conclusion. And then inside these 2 sentences, you have, 2-3 arguments, for example. This is what is the construction of a paragraph. And what I'm telling you, that you read the first sentence, not the whole paragraph I'm asking you. Sometimes, students by mistake, what they do is actually, right after they are handed over the passage and the questions, what they do is, they very blindly, with their mind switched off, start reading from, the topic and paragraph onwards to the last, paragraph, and then they move towards the questions, and there they are lost, actually. No, your job is, as I told you before, step 1, read questions, underline the keywords, and keep those keywords in your mind. Step number 2, dealing with the passage. In the passage, you have the topic, go through the topic, and read the first and the last sentence of every paragraph. First sentence and the last sentence, they are actually, you are studying main ideas. Now, step number 2, you have studied the main ideas of all the paragraphs. Now, before I move towards the third step, try to match the main ideas of your paragraphs with the keywords. Let's say there is one tip, TIP tip I can give you, that in 80%, I mean, the point which I'm going to share with you, 80% it will be, workable. I mean, questions are organized, in accordance with the flow of the text. I mean, questions are organized, questions are numbered from 1 to 15, exactly in accordance with the flow of the passage. I mean, if you want to know the answer to question number 1, its answer will not be in the last paragraph of the passage or in the second last. Question number 1, 2, or 3, chances are, 80% chances are that the answers to these 3 questions will be either in the first or in the second paragraph. Answers of question number, let's say, 13, 14, 15, do not try to find out answers to these questions in the first paragraph. They are last questions. Try to find them out in the last paragraphs. Now, this is very important tip I'm sharing with you for academic only. It's not for educated reading. It's not for purpose reading. I'm telling you only for academic reading. Okay. Now, you have, followed 2 steps. You have found out keywords. You have found out the main ideas of all the paragraphs. Before going to third step, what you do? You compare keywords and the main ideas. Compare them and ask yourself this question, because of course keyword, chances are that possibility is that some keywords you find in the sentences which you have read. I mean, let's say the very first keyword of the very first question, you find in the very first sentence of the very first paragraph. If you found out this way, of course, right there and then, go back and answer, that question. And, this is how, you keep going along with, and chances are also that some keywords maybe many keywords you do not find in the first and the last sentences. But at least reading the first and the last, understanding first and the last, knowing about the main idea of that very topic can give you an idea that, of course, when you read one paragraph has a temperament. Keyword also has a temperament. I mean, let's say the paragraph is about causes of pollution, and some keyword is about some pollution cause, for example. Now, in that paragraph which is about causes of pollution, now that paragraph holds one temperament, and that very keyword which is also about the pollution cause has its own temperament. These 2 temperaments, of course, will match. And this can give you an idea. This can give you an idea that, yes, in so-and-so paragraph, this keyword's answer I can find, or this question's answer I can find. If some keyword is about the past, and you're reading some narrative, passage, it's about the past. Let's say it's about manufacturing of, let's say, some car, let's say first Mercedes car manufacturing, and in the passage somewhere you read the paragraph is about when first time so many years back first Mercedes came onto the scene. So both are sharing the same temperament, and this can give you an idea that yes, in so and so paragraph I can find out the answer of so-and-so keyword or so-and-so question. So these are 2 steps. Step number 1, questions you read, keywords you underline, and do not forget, keywords are not function words, they are picture words. They are nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. Underline them. Step number 2, you are going to read first and the last sentence of every paragraph in the passage. If you find any keyword in the first and the last sentence, that is the answer to that keyword, to that question. If you do not find, at least reading first and the last sentence will give you the main idea of that very paragraph, and in a way is going to help you to make your guess whether so-and-so keywords, so-and-so questions answer can I find in so-and-so paragraph. These are 2 steps. Step number 3, which is extremely important. Step number 3 is now jumping inside the paragraph now. As I said, 1 passage with 5 paragraphs, and now we are going to jump into each of the paragraph, which we call as, in a way, scanning. But skimming and scanning actually is the style of, educated reading. But, of course, we use for academic reading also. When you read the first and the last sentence, you are skimming actually, and now you are going to jump inside the paragraph, which will be scanning. So what to do when you jump inside the paragraph? Look, inside the paragraph is what? Inside the paragraph, we have sportive details. What are sportive details? Sportive details are 2 things in the sportive details. Number 1, writers' main arguments in sport of main idea. Number 2, the explanations, the details, the descriptions, the analogies used to elaborate those arguments. So, inside the paragraph, you have sportive details, and sportive details have 2 things. Number 1, argumentation, and number 2, explanation. Explanation of the argumentation and arguments about the main idea. So this is how, the text is actually constructed. So what to do when I say jump in, to the paragraph? Very simple thing. Inside the paragraph, inside the body of the paragraph, you have bold types. What are bold types? Bold types means, let's say, if you find any bold words, frankly speaking, any bold word, that's a bold type. Any word which is underlined, that's a type, that's a bold type. Any word which is given in brackets, that's a bold type. Any word which is highlighted with the help of hyphens is a bold type. Anywhere inside the paragraph, you find any, let's say, digits and numbers, that's a bold type. If there is any, let's say, illustration, to say any graph is given or any table is drawn or, some flow chart stuff is there, any, bar chart or pie chart or line graph, these are bold types. It's very important, very, very important to bring them in your grasp. Why? Look, I told you before, second step. In second step, you read first and the last sentence and you compare keywords with the first and the last sentence. And many a time what happens that your keywords match with the first and the last sentence, and there you get answers. At the same time, many a time what happens, your keywords are not matching. It means answers are not in the first and the last paragraphs. Answers are in the sportive details. And I have told you, sportive detail is what? Sportive detail is argumentation and explanation. Fine. What is argumentation? Argumentation will be the sub-point of the same main idea. And what is explanation? Of course, explanation will be in the form of answers, some details, some facts and figures, and of course they are, represented with the help of some italics, some bold types, some underlined things, some what you call brackets, and some hyphens, for example, some graphs, pie charts, flow charts, some tables, This is how the inside of the paragraph is constructed. So if answer is not in the first and the last sentence, then answer is inside. And inside, I have told you that these things, you are going to underline and find out and bring in your grasp. Another very important thing, another which is bold type, is any word which is uppercase. Uppercase means, look, all nouns will be uppercase. I mean, the 6 questions which I talked about, who means person or organization. It's a noun. It is going to be in uppercase. Where means places. Places are nouns. They are going to be in uppercase. When are dates? They are in digits. Months will be uppercase, like Feb, Jan, July. They will be uppercase. So 3 questions like where, uppercase. The first word capital. When, digits. Very easily you can find on one piece of paper in one paragraph how many are digits. Very easily, in just one glance you can find out how many digits are present. And if there is any question about digits, if there is any question about date, for example, so if there are 2-3 dates mentioned, out of those 2-3 dates, one is answer to that question. So if we once again analyze those 6 questions, who, names, uppercase, it's a bold type. So very easily you can find out, how many words are uppercase. So one of those uppercase words will be your answer. Where, again nouns, they are uppercase, you can very easily find. When are dates in digits, very easily you can find. And what means, the main idea. And of course, main idea is always either in the first sentence or in the last sentence, which you have already, read out. 2 questions left only. Those 2 questions are what? Where, why and how. Now, these are only 2 little difficult questions to answer. Otherwise, 4. And if you see the ratio, 4 you have already found out just through, scanning the text. And 2 will be slightly difficult. So don't you think that 70% of the text you can answer without even reading? Just following the first 3 steps, you can answer 70% of your, you can solve questions. I mean, what, who, where, when. 4 types of questions you can easily find out their answers. 2 are left. So these are 3, steps. What have you done so far? So far, questions read, keywords underlined, and kept in your mind. Step number 2, first sentence and the last sentence you read of every paragraph. What actually helps you this one? This step creates a picture, creates a map in your mind of the whole passage. And then, before moving towards the third step, you matched the keywords and the main ideas. Okay. If you found any relevance, answer there and then. Otherwise, you move towards the third step. In third step, you jump inside the text. Jumping inside the text means, inside you find out bold types. And I have already explained what are bold types. After reading that, again try to match those keywords with the bold types. Let's say there is when question, W-H-E-N, when, about dates. Any date you find, answer. Where question, which is about place. Any place you find inside the text, answer. Who is about people. Any, people or persons, any names you find, answer. So this much, you have done. Now what to do next now? Next, you will now come back to your questions once again and try to once again, very frankly speaking, after having done this much, many questions, you would have answered. Many questions. Of course, some questions about the main ideas you have answered. Some questions about, when, where, and, who questions, you have answered. Problem, will be with, the process question. The problem will be, with the, this why question. How and why. For this, you'll have to come back again, to your questions, and you'll have to reanalyze. What to reanalyze? Now, ask yourself, how many questions are about processes? Ask yourself, how many questions are about reasoning? I mean, why? How and why? Out of 15 questions, find out 2-3 questions, 1 or 2 questions about how, 1 or 2 questions about why. Then you need to ask yourself the register or the temperament of those, questions. Let's say, again, naming your text the same way. Let's say it's a text about pollution. And in the first paragraph, first paragraph was an opening paragraph, general paragraph about pollution. In the second paragraph, it was, let's say, causes of pollution. In the next paragraph, it was, their effects on human health. In the fourth paragraph, there were some remedies, actually, how to, resolve this problem. And then, of course, closing. Let's say that's your text. Now, fourth step, where I took you again back to the questions and I requested that analyze the nature now of questions. How many are how questions and how many are why questions? And then I said, analyze their temperament or register. Ask yourself that those questions are about the types of pollution, or those questions are about remedies, or those questions are about their effects on human health. This analysis you have to do again. Once this is done, that let's say how, there was one question, how, and your analysis says that in this question they want to know about how to remedy this problem. In your passage that which paragraph is about the pollution remedies. In that paragraph, you'll have to come back and find out the answer. And if some question is why why so-and-so type of pollution is extremely dangerous, very simply, you'll have to come back to that paragraph of the passage which was talking about, different types of pollutions and their effects on human health. This is how you will be, answering. What I told you in academic writing, that most part of academic writing can be done without very traditional way of reading the passages. Traditional way is, you get the passage, you get the list of questions, you put aside the list of questions, you start reading from the paragraph 1 going down to paragraph 5. And when you finish doing this, very frankly speaking, the previous 4 paragraphs are out of your mind. Come back to your questions, you go through the questions, they are so scary that the whole passage is out of your mind. After reading those questions, the passage is out. You'll have to reread it. When you reread, questions are out of your mind. I mean, that problem, it scares you to this stuff that, you are depressed and lost, frankly speaking. So follow the steps which I've given you. In these steps, I didn't say academic reading is not reading, actually. Academic reading is not reading, actually. It is what? It's a strategy, which I've given you. It's how you analyze the texts in split seconds. Okay. Now, dear students, let's move towards our second type of reading, which I call it educated reading. Now, this is totally different from, academic reading. In academic reading, you have some assignment actually, sort of, that, you have a passage, you have some questions and you need to answer. You have some time limit, keeping yourself within the same time limit you need to answer, blah, blah, blah. Whereas in educated reading, this is let's say you are working as a researcher, you are a journalist, you need to collect, information for some writing, let's say. You're a journalist, you want to write some feature, you want to write some article, and you need to research, you need to go to libraries, and, over there you need to read some books, you need to read some research articles, you need to read some actually research journals, magazines, encyclopedia. Now, this reading style, of course, is educated reading. Here, of course, you don't have any question to answer. Yes, there are questions in your mind, and those all questions are about your assignment. Assignment means, the feature you want to write, the article you want to write. If you're a researcher, the research, which you want to, conduct, and the material which you need in support of, your research problem, blah, blah, blah. Here, of course, you don't have, explicitly speaking, you don't have, questions to answer. Okay, for educated reading, we have three very commonly known styles. As I mentioned before also in some reference, those styles are, by the way, skimming, scanning, and detailed reading. Skimming actually means, you can say, just getting the gist of something, and scanning means you have a focus in your mind and then reading for that very specific focus. Detailed reading is when you want to read for accurate details. I mean, you want to, let's say, copy, for your research, let's say, with citations, of course, then, of course, detailed reading, will be required. What is this skimming? As the word skim means, let's say you are reading a book. In that book, there will be, broadly speaking, two things. The main idea, and the second thing will be loads of explanations, loads of details, loads of different, let's say, analogies, writers, personal experiences, narrations and descriptions and blah, blah, blah. Skimming now means what? We say it, keeping yourself with the main story of the book. I mean, let's say you open your book, you read the first page, okay, and you find out that, the first page is the scene setting page. You don't need that. Why? Because the story hasn't started yet. Now you are skimming. You are leaving paragraphs. You're leaving pages till the point you reach where the story starts. After the start of the story, then again, let's say some explanation or some description or some narration takes place, you skip that. You again find out, the second thread of the same, story. Let's say you were on page 5, 2-3 pages you left. On page, let's say, 9, you came to know the continuation of the story. So from page 5, you jump to page, let's say, 9. And this is how you go from, page number 1 to the page last of the book. This is what actually skimming is. Skimming means just holding down to the main idea of the book. As far as the details and explanations concerned, not, giving any importance. If I bring you back to a small piece of reading, the passage in academic writing we were talking about, step number 2 was actually skimming step. And step number 3 was scanning step. Step number 2, in which what we did actually, we read the first sentence, we read the last sentence. We did not read in step number 2 the inside, between the details which are between these two sentences. There were 5 paragraphs, line 1, sentence 1, sentence last of paragraph 1, 5 paragraphs, and 10 lines, we read only. This is what actually skimming is. Only reading the main idea so that you could really have a gist. When you're sitting in a library and you're doing research, you're browsing books, you're browsing, research journals. You cannot scan each and every page for your research or for your information. You cannot, spend time, reading unnecessary details, which are not relevant to your research or to your, job. You simply, what you do actually, you skim. You skip pages upon pages, chapters upon chapters, but you make sure that you are very much with the story. As long as you are with the story, this style, which I'm calling it, skimming, it's justified. So you can have, let's say you have finished reading a book, for example, in just 1 hour or in 2 hours. One full-fledged book in 1 hour. Surprising. Oh yes. Actually, you haven't, read it cover to cover, page to page, paragraph to paragraph. No. You only read the story of the book. How? By skipping pages, by skipping chapters. If I ask you some questions about, that novel, about, let's say, the theme of that novel, the story of that novel, the characterization in that novel, you can, of course, answer. But as far as the explanation is concerned, as far as the small events concerned, the descriptions concerned, the very, narrowed down secondary, tertiary facts and figures concerned, those you don't know, of course. So this is what actually skimming is. Second style of educated reading is scanning. Scanning means what? It's a plunge into the depths of the paragraphs. Now, for scanning thing, we do not skip, let's say, paragraphs. We read what you say, the details also, the explanations also, the descriptions also, the narrations also. Sometimes they may be of primary or secondary importance, but for scanning thing, we do read that. But please keep in mind, this is not, it may sound as if this is detailed reading, that we're reading each and everything. No. We have one focus in mind. Let's say we have one question in mind, which is not an explicit question like in academic reading. It's an implicit question, whatever we are collecting information for, that very question is in our mind, and we are scanning. We are jumping deep down the paragraphs and the pages for that focus. Yes, any information which is not relevant to the focus will not read. So I can put it this way, that at the top is skimming, where we only tie ourselves with the story and we skip chapters and paragraphs and pages. Scanning, we have a focus. For that focus, we read details. If there are any details which are not relevant, we leave. They may be in the form of pages, or they may be in the form of paragraphs. We don't read that. The third style of educated reading, or reading for education, is detailed reading. Like as a researcher, or as a journalist, for example, investigative journalist, for example, you need to quote things. You need to quote facts and figures. You need to quote exact words, of different writers, for example. 3 things, as a researcher you can do. Either you quote word to word, or you paraphrase, or you summarize details for your sport. You're writing a research, there you want to quote the words of some doctor, the words of some, police officer, the words of some, affected person, blah, blah, blah. Therefore, you need to, read for accurate information, word to word, and that, very carefully you note down in your notebook, with proper citations, and then, of course, you come back, and when you, you are constructing your arguments, you can support your arguments, with the help of those quotations or summaries or paraphrases. So this is called, detailed reading. Make sure in detailed reading, we note down word to word with proper citations. Citations means, the name of the author you are quoting word to word, the name of the work, I mean, if it's from a book, then the book name, it's from a magazine, the magazine name, and essential, other details, for example, printing or publishing information. This is very, very important for detailed reading. Our third reading type is purpose reading. Now, purpose reading means reading to, look, first of all, there may be many purposes for this, but the purpose, which is in my hand, which I want to throw light on, is reading to learn language. Let's say English language you want to learn, you can learn it through reading. 4 skills I mentioned in the beginning: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Writing is something, if I say you can learn language from writing, well, some may say yes, we can learn from writing, or some may say yes, we can learn from speaking. But frankly speaking, writing and speaking are 2 outputs. They have inputs. I mean, writing and speaking are dependent actually. Dependence cannot make you independent, frankly speaking. I mean, you want to learn language, how come you can learn from writing when writing is dependent? Dependent upon reading. You cannot learn from speaking. Why? Speaking is a dependent. Dependent on what? Dependent on listening. Yes, you can learn language either through listening, because listening is an independent skill. It can, make you independent. Reading is an independent skill. It can make you independent. Improve your reading, your writing will be improved. Improve your listening, your speaking will be improved. Directly, you cannot say, well, I want to learn language from writing, or I want to learn language from speaking. That's not possible. For speaking, you need words. For speaking, you need ideas. Then you'll have to go back to listening. See, see people talking, see the type of words they're using, and then, you can use those words. Or for writing, see people read texts, see people what words they use, the same words, you can use for your reading. So this actually I mean, when I say, purpose reading. This is possible. You need only 3 things to improve your language, to learn your language from reading. Reading is a mother skill. When I say write, you would say, excuse me, I don't have ideas, I don't have language. Yes, you're right. When I say speak, you'll again say the same thing. Well, I don't have words, I don't have structures, I don't have ideas. That's why I say reading is a mother skill. To learn language from reading, you need 3 things. 1, a good dictionary. Number 2, a notebook. And number 3, your favorite reading material. If you like fiction, buy a good fiction. If you like non-fiction, for example, go and buy a non-fiction. Fiction, of course, where imaginary details will be. And non-fiction means, where you have, true details. For example, some biographies, autobiographies, for example. This is, an example of non-fiction. So what you can do is, there are some steps which you can use. Time is short. I'll try to just, mention these steps. And then, with the help of some, handouts, of course, you can see the details also. And of course, over there, I have mentioned some, steps to follow to improve your language from reading. Well, good dictionary, notebook, and readable material. Step number 1 will be go through the text. I mean, do not, when I say go through the text, it does not mean that, you start going through the whole chapters. No, you will be going from paragraph to paragraph. Go through a paragraph, understand it. Of course, there will be some difficult words. They're going to be a problem for you. Use dictionary, get their meanings. Then again read. Minimum 3 times, you should read before you analyze that paragraph for language learning. You have read the paragraph, you have learned the meanings of all those words. Next step will be find out word associations. Some words are naturally associated with other words. Find out those. Find out some idiomatic expression if used, and then see what types of structure writer is trying, and After this, find out if there are some phrases used, try those also. Then signal words, if the writer has used, find out those as well. See what types of mechanics writer is using, see what types of punctuation, writer is trying. After analyzing all these, and notebook means, you are noting these pieces of information down in your notebook, and then, you can rewrite once, you have noted down, you learned them, by heart, and now you can rewrite the same paragraph in your own words, okay? And this process, should continue, for some time, and this is how, you can improve, your writing, or you can learn, language out of reading. Remaining details, of course, you can find in my handouts. I believe this is going to benefit you a lot. With this, I'll call it a day. I hope you understood, what this reading is, these 3 different types, and, see you then with this next time with a new topic. Take care of yourself and each other. Bye-bye.